Good evening, everybody. This is Fatima Al-Dosari, the Executive Director here at the Qatar America Institute for Culture, or as the French call us, QAIC. We are a nonprofit organization based in Washington, D.C. that does art and culture exchange between Qatar, the U.S., and the larger Arab and Islamic worlds. Today, we are celebrating National Arab American Heritage Month, and we're very fortunate to have an Arab American creative who is joining us today. We got the opportunity, thanks to him, to screen his film at our headquarters, and we will have a short talk that we will get to know more about the film and his creative process in a few seconds. Oualid Mouaness, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm really happy to welcome you as part of this program and to know more about your journey in creating this film and the challenges you faced and what is up next for you in your filmmaking journey. So welcome again, Oualid, and thank you so much for accepting our invitation to join us today.
Thank you so much. It's an honor to be a part of this, especially also, I believe the Doha Film Institute is also a sister organization for you, and they were instrumental in making this film happen. Actually, they were the first major funders who came on board in support of this film and the message of this film. So it's nothing short of an honor for me to be here. So thank you. Yes.
Great. And 1982 is the first film from Lebanon to address the 1982 war. So let's talk about your creative process in producing the film and capturing your childhood through the two boys, Wissam and Majid. So tell us about your inspiration in telling their stories, and how long was your creative process in making the film?
Gosh, it took about 8 years from the moment I put pen to paper to finishing the film. And a lot of people, as Arabs, and particularly as Arab Americans, and it's a touchy subject because 1982 is when the Israeli invasion of Lebanon happened. So a lot of people were like, why are you even tackling this issue? Why are you even talking about it? And what I realized, also having been in Hollywood for as long as I have and working here, is that we see war films and we don't really see the human sides of our stories, which I think if we are to sway the pendulum and to change hearts and minds, a war film is not about the people who fight the war. It's about the people who don't fight the war. And it's about the people, it's about us. It's about life trying to keep on going in spite of everything that's happening. And I just felt it was really necessary to tell the story. And I realized that nobody knows what happened in Lebanon in 1982. And it was important for me to tell it from a perspective I trusted. And that's a perspective I knew, a perspective I didn't read in the books, a perspective that is very personal and that is based on really my experience in my family, my experience in my peers in the world around me. And I felt that would have a farther reach into who we are as humans. And part of my purpose as an Arab and as an Arab American, I believe here, is actually to present us for who we are, which I feel there's a deficit and lack of. And so it was important to tell the story about people and to show us really in our reality. And then, so that really was the inception of this. And on top of that, how is it possible that nobody has told the story from a Lebanese perspective, which is also the Arab perspective? And it was necessary. It was a story that needs to be told, and needs to be told from an Arab perspective, because there's been other films that were made about 1982 that came from Israel and not from Lebanon. Therefore, our story, our narrative, and I think this supersedes any other narratives. I was told it was never going to happen. I was told nobody would finance this film because of the subject matter. I was told, there were people who did not want to see this film made. But then again, I just had to stay the course and leave no stone unturned and make it happen to bring the story to life, And one of the things that is critical about this film is the film is told from a story of a kid, and it's really the kid that I was, which means I didn't particularly understand everything in the adult world. And I wanted to leave the film and have the film be exactly where my understanding and my view of the adult world was, which is basically, you understand that there's divisions, you understand that there's something, but as a kid you were never told what these divisions are, and I wanted to make the audience feel that same level of like the what is going on. I only came to understand what happened in 1982 when I became an adult in the 90s. And what's interesting about this film, and the reason I did it the way I did it, is also because I didn't want the film to end when the film ends. Because the film began before the film actually begins. It's a slice of life, and the film ends, and people walk away with a feeling, with an impression, with a thought, and with a big question. What really happened in 1982 in Lebanon? And what is really amazing, particularly in Europe, because this film is being taught in schools now. It's in Italy in schools, it's in Germany in schools. I'm having conversations with classrooms I would have never dreamed of, is when people are seeing this film, they're going home, they're getting on Google, and they're researching what happened in 1982. And the film continues. Because once they do the research, for me, this is where the film's narrative continues. It continues this narrative even after it's ended. Its films are about curiosity, not just about feelings as well. So, and this film does create this curiosity. And if people are curious enough, they will go home and they will wonder what happened, and they will look it up, because it's rarely ever talked about, but it's a story that needs to be told.
Yeah, absolutely. That's beautiful reflection. Thank you very much.
Yep.
Lebanon is a beautiful country that I think for all of us as Arabs we're very proud of. And in a way, the film was produced does not come across as political, but more of a view of how children see the real world. And as you expressed, it's how you saw the world from a different, angle. And I'm really curious to hear more about your reflection of as an adult now writing and producing this film. What was it like expressing the historical and cultural dynamics in Lebanon about your childhood experience?
It was very emotional, particularly when we were working on this film. Not only was it emotional for me, it was emotional for almost every person who was working in this film, including the actors who were my age and my team, who was primarily mostly my age, because we all lived through this. So there was an aspect of the film that was a little bit of a rite of passage. And there was this feeling of finally we're able to tell our story, and we're able to tell it in its beauty and in its pain, because beauty and pain are kind of two sides of the same coin, just like almost like love and hate sometimes. There are feelings, and there are, and there, they sort of, so I wanted to open up a wound, which some people did not want this wound opened. But one of the things that I felt I wanted to do with this film is open this wound gently, and open it without anger. And which is why the film sort of touches on very polemic issues. It is technically, under the surface, the film can be polemic, and it is somehow political. And I didn't realize that it's political. But then what's interesting is when you do a film that's imbued with humanism is the most political statement that we say, because humanism is about life rejecting war and rejecting politics. And that's an even more political statement. Uh, and yeah, I mean, we had to go through it was emotional, honestly, when we were working through this, and we all understood that this is what we're doing. And some people are like, how did you make a film about the most polemic period in Lebanon's history without it being polemic? Because at the end of the day, in every war, what we forget is, and even today, and I'm a culpable of this, and I believe that most people who watch this film are, at some point, we all step back and we're culpable of this, because we get carried away by emotions, and we get carried away by believing that we're right and they're wrong, and we're right and they're wrong. And what this film does is it kind of digs deeper, because it's also in the world of children, and it's a world in the school. It begs the question, who is right and who is wrong, what is right, what is wrong, while there are clear things that are right and wrong in life. But at the end of the day, belief systems it's very hard to gauge them because it's so subjective, and every side fights in every war and in every country. Whenever there's politics and polemics, like, people are fighting because they believe there's something worth fighting for. So
Mhm.
this film begs the question, let's stop. If I'm fighting for something that I believe in and you're fighting for something that you believe in, let's talk about it, because I'm sure that there's something that you know what I mean? It's about respecting a belief system. The moment you start choosing to respect your opponent is the moment you start making peace with your opponent, because then you are actually taking the first step, which is a step towards understanding the other side. And I think this is really what I wanted to do, especially in Lebanon. What's really sad today is that a lot of people are refusing to actually take certain steps, like on the different sides of political divides, to talk to each other. Because at the end of the day, you're fearing something about me, I'm fearing something about you. But then again, you're also trying to protect your family, and you're trying to protect your family and your people you love. So there's really, this is our similarity. So what is it that we're really fearing about each other? And this is really, I hope that this film does push people in that direction.
Yeah, yeah, me too. And
Yeah,
that's really
yeah,
amazing.
yeah.
I have a question from one member from the audience. How did you use sound as a tool to greater impact in your film?
Um, sound in this film, what's interesting in this film is there is really no antagonist. Like, there's no, even the person that may be not aligned, the people that are not aligned with each other are aligned somehow. The antagonist in the film is sound. It was actually written even at the script stage. And when I first worked, I worked with this incredible sound designer, Rana Eid, who is amazing. And when I sent her the script, I'm like, here you go. She read the script, she loved it. And then I'm like, you're building a character here. Because in any film, you'd have a person who's a bad person, and then, or you'd have an antagonist, right? So there's that. In this film, you're in a school, so there's these little teeny antagonisms that happen in life, which are part of life, which are kind of really represented in the film. But the bigger antagonism is the monster, and the monster of war. It's represented in sound, and it's a monster that's coming very slowly. And it's sort of, and then at the end, I mean, the film starts as a very quiet film. It takes you into this world. I use sound to build the world, not only the visual world, but also the oral world, because sound takes us into spaces and time and makes us feel things. And there's something very subliminal about sound, in that we all know what it sounds like to be in a school when there's an exam, like that quiet, that tension, where suddenly if a pencil drops in another classroom, it kind of rings through and you hear it because of the quiet. And that quiet in and of itself creates a tension. So I use that sonically, combined with nature and the sound of nature in Lebanon versus the sound of war. And the film kind of really plays on the tugging of sound between nature and war, back and forth. They're sort of like, which one's going to take over? Are we going to hear the cicadas, the birds, or are we going to hear the planes and the bombs? So these are sort of like, there's a major interplay there, and we really calibrated this, and a lot of it was present in the script.
That's wonderful. That's
Yeah.
really. And another question from the audience. Central to the film is the child's pursuit of love, even amidst the war and aggression. What informed your decision to center love amidst such a dark place?
My story. I mean, one of the things that really drove this narrative is the fact that I did have a crush on a girl in my class at the time. And I did write a love note to a girl, but I got into a lot of trouble. And they called after my mother, because it was actually it was very بلا تهذيب, as we say. بالعربي. So so yeah, no, it's actually love. I couldn't have done this film without love, right? Because at the end of the day, the only thing that drives us is love, and through love comes hope, and this is a film about hope, and it's about life goes on. And the thing is, every relationship, not only the crushes that we have at school, or the romantic love, but also there's friendship and there's relationships. Like there's love in everything. You know what I mean? And it's love that drives everything. And I think it's love that keeps us going, whether it's family love, whether it's love for education, whether it's like everything that drives us to do something in life, it's grounded in our love for that thing or that person. And I felt it was very important. And love is it's a force. I mean, love is stronger than war. I mean, the film leaves you with that, and it really tells you how futile war is, and you ask yourself why.
That's wonderful. I have one last question for you because I want to be very mindful, respectful of your time. And I know many of our audience members also um, are going to they will be celebrating Eid tomorrow. So Eid Mubarak to everybody.
Eid Mubarak to everybody. صح. Yes.
And so I will leave you with one last question. As we began this conversation, we are celebrating Arab American National Heritage Month, and we are thrilled to highlight you and your award-winning film as part of this month. And this effort is in collaboration with our partners at the Doha Film Institute. And your film today was actually screened at the Arab Film House, which was, I would say, a product of a conversation and a partnership between us and DFI for the when we were at the Oscars in 2020.
Yeah.
So we're really, thrilled to have this partnership with DFI and to be able to have creatives like yourself to be here with us virtually today, but hopefully we'll see you soon in person. So I'm really curious to know that you're part of a generation of filmmakers in the diaspora who are creating incredibly thoughtful films that are often inspired by their own experiences. So can you speak to your experience as an Arab American filmmaker in making films and why you think it is important to share
Yeah.
such stories?
I think it's really important because I do think we've been misunderstood as Arab Americans, and we've been stereotyped. I mean, it is an uphill battle, and we have to present ourselves, and we have to really calibrate. It took a while for me to make this film because I needed to be strong enough and in a position that's credible enough where I could actually command that this is the kind of story that needs to be told about us, because it's been exhausting being in Hollywood. Like, what's interesting is 1982 came out when it came out, there was another film called Beirut that came out, which was just like a horrible film. And it's just about this representation. And I think, and I'm actually very proud of a lot of the things that are happening. Like we have, of course, about Mo, which is an incredible TV series. And I think this is like, we need to represent ourselves. We need to show ourselves. We need to be present. We need to be in the room. We need to have our voice. And this is, for me, part of my journey of having the voice, the same way as Shireen's work, Shireen Dabis, who I absolutely love and who's an amazing filmmaker and director, who also has a voice. And there's many of us that are actually hopefully starting to make a dent in the world. As a matter of fact, I do feel that the pendulum is shifting. And no, like, we are starting to command, like, no, this is the story, this is who we are. And that's really important. And I think that is also complements and empowers what comes out of the Middle East, which is the fact that we don't want to make projects that pander to the West. We want to make projects that tell our stories for what they are, while making them accessible to Western audiences and to the United States, so that we are understood. But we should never compromise on the nature of the story and the nature of who we are, and the biggest battle is actually not to subscribe to the stereotypes, because everybody wants you to, and the world sort of feels like it wants you to. And yeah, and I think we should, I'm proud of what's happening among a lot of my peers in the Arab American community and what we're trying to do. And I think that's empowering a lot of the new work that's coming out of the Middle East as well, which is very accessible. It's just like, I'm just hoping that the work that comes out of the Middle East does not subscribe to the Western format in terms of what the stories are, but rather find the stories that need to be told that are actually representative rather than pandering. And it's not an easy battle, because, yeah.
Agreed.
So,
And
yes.
I wanted to leave you today with one last question. What is your message to the audience? What is the message that you hope that they leave with from watching your film?
It's a tough question because this is a film really about hope, right? It's a film. My hope is that everybody, particularly an Arab who sees this film, because I really made this film. I didn't make this film with a Western audience in mind. I made it for Lebanese people and I made it for the Arabs. And I made it to show us for who we are. Though it does take place in a little microcosm of Lebanon, which is the area that I grew up in Lebanon, like other parts are very different. But this is a story for me that happens in Yemen, that happened in Syria, that happened in Iraq, that happened in Palestine. And my hope is that whoever walks away with this film, from this film, realizes that fighting amongst each other is the most futile thing. One of the most beautiful things that's happening recently, I think, and I hope something good comes of it, is the fact that there's a reconvergence between what's happening politically between Iran and Saudi. And I think the fact of the matter is, I think we're realizing that we have to talk to each other and we have to talk through our differences. And this is a film about us talking through our differences, because even in the character in the adult characters in the film, there's very fundamental differences, and at the end of the day, it is the character of the teacher that basically says, no, we're not wasting each other's time, let's continue. And continue means continue together. And I think this is really important because you have to talk through differences. We cannot say we're different and we argue with each other and not understanding each other's priorities and interests. And so this is really the message of this film is like, no, we absolutely reject war and we have to talk through our differences, because only through our unity will we be stronger.
Absolutely. Thank you
Maybe I'm
so
too much of an idealist, but as a filmmaker and as artists, I mean, I hope that we bring this message, these kinds of messages powerfully to the people. Yeah.
Thank you so much again, Oualid, for joining us tonight. And I hope that you will be able to join us in the fall. So many of our visitors today who got to watch you and watch the film will be able to meet you in person. And we're really looking forward to more collaborations with you and, of course, with DFI in Doha and in the US. So thank you so